Hello everyone, this is Crota coming at you, giving you game 1 in a series between Moni versus WFZ. WFZ spawning as the red undead player on the top right hand side of the map. Meanwhile, we have Moni spawning as the blue night elf. Now, gotta say this early on, my primary race when I was actively playing Warcraft 3 was human, so that is the race that I generally know a little bit more about and can offer a bit more insight. However, because of the current meta and the recent dominance of Undead and Night Elf and the fading away of a lot of the prominent human players, I haven't really been able to offer as much insight as I would normally like to. I am still working on that as we are looking at a Keeper of the Grove. Interesting hero of choice here, Keeper of the Grove, as the primary hero from the Night Elf. Now, the Keeper of the Grove is generally very strong against Crypt Fiends, but not so strong against ghouls. The reason why those ghouls can get an easy surround on that Keeper of the Grove, a rather squishy primary intelligence hero, and with that, it just doesn't have the staying power as, say, compared to a Demon Hunter. We'll see if that decision comes back to haunt him, as we are now looking at a Death Knight coming in from the Undead. We should be looking at what the primary skill of that Death Knight is going to be, whether or not it's Death Coil or Unholy Aura. If it is Unholy Aura, I am expecting that Death Knight to pick up a Rod of Necromancy and run across the map, trying to put down a lot of early pressure. If it is a Death Coil, I am expecting him to perhaps do a little bit more creeping than anything else. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. It looks like it is gonna, well, I can't tell if it's Death Coil, but it's definitely not Unholy. It's definitely not Unholy Aura, as we are now looking at the Keeper of the Grove making his way off to the north. Now, if the Keeper of the Grove can perhaps land 1 or 2 entangles and then take down a ghoul, that would actually be a very big deal. All right, the ghoul is now trying to run back here. Not quite sure why it is still running back here. There is that damage. There is the entangle, and a death coil will be coming in. You can see that that ghoul is taking a little bit of damage, but he is not going to fall to that entangle. All right, the Death Knight chasing after that Keeper of the Grove. Now, the Death Knight still not showing if he's going to go Unholy Aura or Death Coil, but I gotta believe that it is going to be Death Coil, as we're also looking at a hidden Ancient of War. All right, so it is going to be Tier 1 Ancient of War into Mass Huntresses. Interesting choice, as it kind of forces his opponent to try and make Crypt Fiends, which the Keeper of the Grove is generally strong at taking care of. This ghoul back over here going to be hiding for quite some time. Meanwhile, there is a skeletal minion here that was able to sneak through and take down that low hit point, or taking down that Wisp. I believe the Death Knight, no, never mind. The Death Knight's still not on the board with any experience, as we see a Death Coil land on that Keeper of the Grove. All right, Wisp now making its way out. Are we going into Huntresses? Yes, we are, as the Keeper of the Grove still running around in circles, and we are now going into a graveyard. All right, so we are not looking at a very large number of ghouls as we would normally see at this point. Instead, going into the Crypt Fiends, and it looks like and feels like WFZ knows that something is amiss. Now, all we're going to really look at is the Keeper of the Grove is buying time, and the Death Knight is constantly putting pressure on this Keeper of the Grove, so the Keeper of the Grove may actually, does not walk to that Nerubian Tower and does not get slowed. Huntresses now making their way out. There's 1, there's 2 Huntresses, and here we go. Here are the Huntresses, and now all of a sudden things have been turned around, as the Keeper of the Grove getting some easy shots onto that Death Knight. Death Knight now down to 550 hit points. Nothing really to be worried about just quite yet, as the Crypt should start pumping out Crypt Fiends here in just a moment. Now, we do need a lot more Huntresses for this play to really take shape. The Keeper of the Grove is out on the field, so if a Crypt Fiend does pop out, as long as the entangle happens, that Crypt Fiend is not going to be focusing down these Huntresses. That's going to end up hurting him a lot. However, the question is going to be whether or not the reinforcements can get there in time. There's a Death Coil onto the Keeper of the Grove. There's a little bit of damage, as we now perhaps should be looking at more damage back onto the Crypt again. All right, skeletal minions now coming in. They are now looking to back off here. Crypt Fiends, another Huntress or 2 now being added here. So this is going to cause even more problems, as the Huntress gets some extra damage onto the Keeper of the Grove, but that damage is not going to really add up very quickly, as we now see the Halls of the Dead with that piercing damage really starting to cause a bit of a problem. All right, Gargoyle is going to be the choice. So a beautiful head fake on his part. Gargoyle is the perfect unit to combat these Huntresses, as the Huntresses obviously cannot attack those airborne Gargoyles, while the Gargoyles themselves are doing a good bit of piercing damage. This is the reason why there is so much focus onto this crypt, but it doesn't look like that crypt will get taken down. Even an Acolyte being brought over to repair, and once that Gargoyle is out, things are going to go from bad to worse. All right, 2 Gargoyles are already out on the field. You see that back crypt there, and this is why you generally do not go Huntresses against Undead. This is the perfect tech choice from WFZ. WFZ knowing his builds and counter builds and knowing what exactly to do. The Sacrificial Pit trying to get taken down here, as we are now looking at one Ancient of Protector and an Ancient of Lore being constructed. All right, that Ancient Protector is going to be taking a little bit of damage. Archer now out on the field, going to be able to do a little bit of piercing damage as well. That piercing damage, 16 to 18, does end up doing a lot of damage, but it looks like that Ancient Protector will still end up falling. Meanwhile, back over here, the Huntress is now chasing down the Death Knight. Everyone still without any experience on the board, as it looks like, oh, the Ancient Protector is going to finish. All right, all we need now is a repair, and that is going to be it. One Gargoyle gets taken down. The Death Coil misses, and that is going to end up hurting. All right, Death Knight may end up getting surrounded here. Yes, he does. I believe a Scroll of Town Portal is in order. And is it going to be happening? Yes, it will. It looks like one Huntress will get taken down without a Shadow Meld in time. And there is the Mass Teleport as a Tree of Life already up for Moni. So Moni is going to be able to perhaps take down this Rock Golem creep camp and perhaps set up an expansion. This does mean the longer this game goes, the better it will be for the Night Elf, but he's going to need a lot of Ancient Protectors to really protect himself from those Gargoyles. All right, Shade is now out on the field. Tree of Life tanking a fair bit of damage. You can see that the Keeper of the Grove now trying to back off here, and the Huntresses are here as well. The Gargoyles going to perhaps take down this Keeper of the Grove. He's already down to 130 hit points, and now trying to get away rather quickly. All right, level 1 now on the Keeper of the Grove. All right, going up against the Death Knight. The Death Knight down to 75 hit points, down to 56. Both of them are fighting, and who's going to win out? The Death Knight wins out in that blow-by-blow. And that was perhaps the biggest mistake that we've seen. The Keeper of the Grove unable to finish off that Death Knight. Keeper of the Grove falls at level 1. At least it is still just a level 1 hero, as it is easy to resurrect. Does not take that much gold. It resurrects rather quickly. But the Death Knight may use this opportunity and this time to clear out more difficult creep camps. Death Knight still sitting at level 2. You can see Ziggurats have been all completed. Crypt Fiends nowhere near production, as the Gargoyles are more than enough. Scroll of the Beast, Archers, Dryads looking to perhaps poke down these Gargoyles. Let's take a look. There's an Ancient Protector here, a Keeper of the Grove out on the far side here. If it can pick up these items, that may end up working out, as the Shade now keeping track of what's going on with this Night Elf army. All right, the Gargoyles may decide to come back to try and protect, as a second Ancient of Lore now getting pressured. All right, a quick cancellation there, as we're looking at the Wisp slowly getting picked apart there. No detonation, and the Death Knight still standing on Blight, liking the fact that he can regenerate a bit of hit points. Gargoyle still flying around, not aggroing the creeps on at the top part of the map there, as the Lich now added with an Orb of Corruption. All right, it looks as though the Keeper of the Grove will get to level 2. Claws of Attack +6, a rather useful item on the Keeper of the Grove, as he does want to be able to take down those Gargoyles rather quickly, and that is going to be what it takes. We do also have a Scroll of the Beast, and that Scroll of the Beast is going to be useful as long as there are no Destroyers. So far, the Keeper of the Grove sitting at level 2. Unfortunately, Thorns are not useful at all, and those Ents are not going to be useful either. As soon as he trains up Ents, I'm pretty sure that the Death Knight is just going to say to himself, you know what? I'm going to get that slaughterhouse now and start training up those obsidian statues and those destroyers to not only shut down any sort of buffs that you may be able to cast with items, but also take down those ents and regenerate a bit of hit points as well. All right, Ancient Protector now being constructed back over here. What Ancient Protector off over here, sitting at 50 over 50 supply compared to 42 over 50. It is a little bit deceiving because of the fact that the Keeper of the Grove, the base of the Night Elf has an additional number of Wisp here to try and train or try and build more at this expansion. All right, let's take a look at this. I believe we're at 40. No, we're at 50 over 60 as we are looking at a quick detonation there. All right, Lich has taken a fair bit of damage. The Keeper of the Grove, the Huntresses could really make a big play. Ancient Protector now about 2/3 of the way done, 3/4 of the way done. The rest of the army now needs to get back off to the north and regroup, as this is going to be a very strong force here in just a moment. That is a lot of gargoyles, no breath of fire. What is going on here? Running straight into a group of gargoyles with only 2 Huntresses and a Keeper of the Grove. That was some free experience for the Death Knight getting to level 3 and the Lich getting to level 2. All right, small misplays like that, giving an opponent such a huge level advantage. Instead of it being level 2, level 1 versus a level 2 hero, it is now a level 3, level 2 versus a level 2 hero. All right, here we go. Dryads now need to fight back. Archers need to fight back as well with no breath of fire. This is just going to be an absolute massacre as those gargoyles are pretty much free to run around. Nothing really challenging them out of the sky as the mass numbers are really taking their toll on the ground units here. All right, let's take a look. Archers now trying to make their way through. The gargoyles still finishing off unit after unit. The gargoyles also getting into stone form to regenerate a bit of hit points and also adding a scroll of healing to add even more damage. There goes the Ancient Protector, and this may be the end of everything as a storm form gargoyle now on the ground with 15 armor. Yes, he is still unarmored, but WFZ easily taking game 1 in the series with a level 3 Death Knight and a level 3 Lich against a solo Keeper of the Grove who really could have used a Panda as a second hero. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed game 1. Please stay tuned for game number 2.